Hi there. I trust each one of you is happy, healthy, and being a blessing to others. I'm happy to connect you with this 1 hour session on Strategy Hour Cloud Connect. My name is Romanus. I'm the Director of Product Support and Security Evangelist at Manage Engine Zoho for Unified Endpoint Management and Security. So the agenda for the day is going to be about, not for the day, for the 60 minutes is all about statistics, strategies, and solutions. Statistics, so I'll be giving you some high-level statistics about the remote work, about the threats which are happening to the organizations and specifically to the endpoints management security. And that way I would be just enlightening or giving visibility about what's happening in real world. Even there are some surveys which I've taken from the market. And the strategy is all about, given with scenario from the statistics, how can you have better manage your business and secure your business so that you should be able to continue the business as usual, right? I'll be giving you two strategies. One is from the C-level. Okay, I get it. So it's not that C-level, it's going to be the chief of organizations like CIOs, CISOs, team managers, people who are in charge of assets for the organizations, right? Now, you might be managing only a particular portion of assets in your organization. However, having this view would enable you to have holistic view of your organization's asset, and you should be able to plan better for better interoperability, and then ensure that anywhere in 8 assets, in case of threats which moves from one asset to other asset, which could be understood better and stopped, right? So this is one level of understanding, organizational level, different assets, how do you go about managing and securing them. The other one is about the solution, the last piece. So I'm sorry, before that, I want to have the second strategy, which focuses more on the endpoints, right? How you should be able to manage and secure endpoints. So this is a view from a threat actor's point of view. I mean, you're looking at your network from the vulnerabilities point of view. And that way you should be able to have right controls, security controls and management controls on these areas according to the strategies, so that you should be able to manage things better, efficiently, and easy way. And then finally, based on the strategies, what we have seen for the endpoint from the vulnerabilities point of view, for the organization's asset and management, securing them and interoperability between all these assets and management, then I would be giving you the line of products, solutions, what we have. And this is more focused on the endpoint management and solutions, security solutions. Now let's start with work. We all know that work has been evolving so many times, and one of the major criteria for work that we see being improved is based on the automation, right? All the repeated tasks are better automated, right? So in that way, you use the human resource for creative, productive work rather than a mundane, regular task, which even puts your employees not being so productive because there are mundane, repeated tasks. Now, that's automation. Now, the digital transformation, along with the telemetry data and AI ops, is creating more transformation into the digitalization. It's enabling the business in a better way to make better decisions, better visibility, better security control, all this stuff. We'll check that. And this is one interesting data from data.ai, which talks about the mobile adoption in 2022. So you could see here 167 billion consumers spend 4 trillion hours, 255 billion downloads, right? This clearly shows that people want to go mobile. Mobility is the way to go, remote work. But this also includes personal and professional business data. Now you have to ensure enabling them doing the business from anywhere in a secure way, at the same time ensuring the personal and professional business data are maintained separately. So you have to have strategies and plans and devices enabled in order to achieve that. This one is from the workforce point of view, people point of view, where people say that they want to be working remotely at some point of time in their career. And this one is from the organizations. They all have plans to expand work from anywhere significantly, so that you have a lot of infrastructure saved in the name of office, but it is enabled in the name of security, privacy, and remote work. Right? So this one is very true. Pandemic is a catalyst for digital transformation. Any organization or anybody would agree with me on this. And here is the data which substantiate that point. Basically, this is released in 21, I think, where you could see before 19 to 22 what is the growth and what is the projection in 25. So the pandemic is definitely a catalyst, and more than any CIOs, CISO, people who are responsible for digital transformation, their efforts were made easy just by pandemic in a year's time or so, right? And this is how we look at a digital enterprise, comprising of three major components: workforce, workplace, workloads. What are workforce? Basically people. The identities which you give for people to work and get into your organization and access the resource. To access the resource, you have to ensure they are secure in terms of privacy and security, passwords, things like that. Now, all those things come under workforce, how you manage that. Workplace, this is all about where you work, where the employee or the identities would work. Typically, we used to have a secured perimeter. Now this has gone. They are every nook and corner in different speeds, in different security levels of network. Now, your endpoints become the workplace. Your browser becomes a workplace, right? Now, how do you secure and manage these endpoints so that these people, identities, should be able to work and ensure they do business and ensure the data travels between the endpoint to the server, the cloud, and comes back. It is all encrypted. Now that is something that we work about workplace, right? Talk about the workplace. And the last one is workload. What are workloads? Workloads are basically the infrastructure which enables people to use their endpoints to do their business and ensure they're able to contribute and run the business as usual, right? So that means your infrastructure, servers, bandwidth, performance, all those things come into action, right? Now, digital enterprise is all about enabling all these stuff, managing all this, and enabling people for better productivity. Now, how do Manage Engine will be able to be your trusted partners? Because we have the unified end-to-end operations management platform for the digital enterprise. So we ensure that there is a consistent end-user experience, right, across every digital medium. And most importantly, we want to enable the mobility so that you should be able to work from anywhere, your employees, and then without any compromise on the security side. And there is always a challenge between productivity versus secure employee experience, right? But that's where we focus more productivity, at the same time not tampering the experience of the end user. And this one is really essential, and that becomes a baseline because every endpoint is not available in the organization, it's outside. So what you used to protect as a perimeter level protection is not possible. So you should be able to use your endpoints, provide security as equal as similar to what you had with the organization perimeter level protection. So that's something that is taken care here. And in order to achieve that, these are all the offerings that you would find from Manage Engine. It's all about enterprise service management, which is help desk ticketing to full-blown IT asset management, ITIL-based, CMDB-based solution, which has the basic SLAs, the workflows, orchestration, everything captured, what you need for the enterprise. And people, which we talked about, identity and access management, which is your Active Directory, Azure, or Microsoft 365, you should be able to manage them efficiently using this. Unified endpoint management and security. This is the topic of the day, so I'll be spending more time on this when we move later. I'm not touching now. IT operations management, which is about your infrastructure, the application performance, the network, right? All these things comes together under this. And SIEM solutions, where you be able to automate, orchestrate the security from different servers and the logs collected, all these things comes here. And then IT analytics is the business intelligence, which goes across these 5 pillars and gives you better business visibility for you to manage it better. And these are available in the on-prem, MSP, and on the cloud, right? So that's quickly about high-level information about what we offer in terms of different verticals. Now, this is the data that the threat actor would want to attack your organization and get the data. So getting the data is so important here. So you see here the cost is given in millions for the top 16 by 2022. This is done by IBM Poneman Institute, and which talk about from US to Turkey or Brazil, right? And except a couple of countries, all the countries from 21 to 22, the rate for the average cost for the data breach has actually increased. And this one is all about, this is not specific to one industry, but across industry you find that attacks are happening, that data breaches are happening, but it is more in terms of health and financial, pharmaceutical, technology, things like that. The reason being, it has more value in terms of your PII, PHI is more valuable in the dark web. So you would find, but interestingly, you find that every segment, every sector, industry has this data breach happening. And this is one more interesting insight, right? We have a presumption that only the bigger organizations, the organization which make more money across the globe are being attacked. No, it's not the case. It's a survey from Microsoft which talks about SMBs are also being attacked, and they are being the target for the threat actors. 70% say that they are very weak in terms of risk, in terms of vulnerabilities what they have, so they could be attacked anytime. 1 in 4 is already attacked. Less than 50% think they are okay at this point because they have skilled people at their organization. And skill shortage is another area which you know that smaller and mid-sized organizations cannot afford to have modern day IT security person with the skills, with the latest technology and problem attacks which are happening. But only when you have a tool and when you have strategy, you should be able to balance it to some level. Now, this talks about the essence here is not only the enterprises, bigger organizations, but even smaller and the medium-sized organizations are also being targeted in this. And one of the major concerns of that is ransomware attack. I don't have to start with WannaCry 2016 with SMB v1. Nobody cared to take that patch and deploy it, but this is how it all started, right? But the attack which happened there for the internet-facing Windows servers, I presume this is not the case at this point of time. However, the evolution of ransomware attackers have gone in a different level, in a better understanding, in terms of better enablement in usage of the technology and grouping them with expertise, right? So RAS, ransomware as a service, is a major contribution towards this, and they have the groups which are specialized in one particular area, like access brokers, where they should be able to compromise network, and others would be able to develop and have their own scripts ready, and another group which can penetrate and then do the lateral movement, right? So now they combine together and ensure a targeted attack. Now this one is again from Microsoft, which talks about how they narrow down typically in an attack, right? Human operated ransomware attack, that's how Microsoft calls it. Now, right from 2,500 potential target organizations, they reduced to 60 based on the priorities, not only on the technical feasibility of getting into you, but also in terms of value, return on investment, value of the records which they want to steal. And then 20 are compromised, and one will have the strong ransomware attack. So this is how they go. It's not about they cannot penetrate into 2,499. No, it's about what they want to do, because based on the return on investment, when you have lesser defense, they are easy to just penetrate. They want to increase the return on investment, right? So that's how it goes. So when you have more protection, the penetration time and the effort is going to take time, and you might, so they don't want to just get in because spending more time and investing more resources on this. This is one typical report from dark side attack, which talks about what are the tools which were used in those attacks. Now you would find the tool names available there, and also what type of tool was that: COTS software, commercially off the shelf, free software, and PowerShells, right? Free tools, PSE, XE, Windows Utility, a lot of things, right? Now, a summary of that gives you this view which talks about the 90% or more than that is freely available applications or service or bundled tool. Only 9 to 10% is what they develop. Now, this gives us a different perception. I was talking about you have to look at your network from the threat actors point of view. This is what it is. Now, use the same 90% tools and then use it against your network, against your endpoint, and see how the endpoint, how the threat actors are able to find the gap in each endpoint or in your endpoint network. Now that way, you should be able to see the gap and then use it in the right way to fill those gaps with correct security controls. Now, when there is an attack in terms of, like living off the land, right? Your own people, that is identity, your own endpoint, right? And your own network inside the organization, and applications which are authorized, approved by the organization. Now, when attack is happening in this combination, you stand no chance to identify and stop this. Now, that's where we talk about strategies. Only when you have better strategies, you should be able to identify such attacks and stop them and respond to it. That's the idea. Now, I'm going to give you the first strategy, which is recommended by NIST, right? It's called Cybersecurity Framework. It has got 5 states: identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. Hope everybody knows about it. I'll just touch quickly on 30 seconds and move on. Identify is identify all your assets. When you talk all your assets, it's not only endpoints. It is all about other assets. We'll come back to that quickly. So identify in the organization what are the assets, and identify all those assets. And where are those assets, right? This is second level. And what are the vulnerabilities in those assets? So this is something that you have to identify. That's what is recommendation. Know your asset, know where they are, and understand what are their vulnerabilities. Once you know about that, just go ahead and start protecting that. If it is a patch related stuff, do the patching, and we have a lot of measures in terms of proactively protecting the assets. You can go ahead and do that. These two are protection layers, right? And then you move on to detect and response. In spite of having protection, because you have so many identities, so many people, and so distributed across the globe or across different regions, now anyway there would be any gap which might give path to the attackers to enter inside. Now, how capable are you when such attacks, in spite of protection, is happening? Are you able to detect it? And there are data to substantiate it, that threat actors would enter into an organization and stay there for 200 to 250 days just to find the right time, collect information, and then launch the attack at the right time, right? So how soon you are able to detect that? This is one important aspect. When you are able to detect it, how well are you responding to it, right? So this is your detect and respond layer. And then recovery, this is all about resilient backups and whatever you have. So the basic idea is how soon you are able to come back to your business, come back to normalcy, and ensure that business is as usual. Though there is an attack happening in one part of the network, you are able to protect yourself, come back with the data in spite of attack, and then resume the business. So it's all about resilience and securing your backup and restoring it quickly so that the business can be resumed. Now, this is what NIST recommends about the cyber security framework. Now, this framework has to be used on all your assets. These are the maximum classification of assets that each organization will be managing. Identity, again, people; endpoints, what they use for the business; and the data, what they produce. People produce data using the endpoints, using the applications on them through the infrastructure. Now, these are the major assets that every organization is worried about. Now, identifying is not only with endpoints. Identify the identities, identify the data types, identify the applications used in your network, identify the infrastructure, and understand where they are and their vulnerability, and be able to have protection in terms of patching, upgrading the firmware, things like that. Now, all these things, 5 methodology has to be applied on each asset. So this becomes a 2-dimensional view. When you have this 2-dimensional view, you should be able to see your organization from a holistic point of view, which means that you have the complete view, or you should be able to find the gaps where your organization assets would be having. Right? That's very important. Now, this 2-dimensional view is the view that every C-level people would love to have. So if you are even managing a particular segment, but I would recommend have this view so that you should be able to plan well to manage and secure your business. Moving from here, I'm just plotting some modules, what is required in terms of from the endpoints, and endpoints would have applications, endpoint is generating data. So what are the modules at each level you should have? So similarly, if you plot it for the whole other assets with some overlaps, you should be able to understand where you have gaps, or you could choose the right tool which covers the maximum and ensure that tool is able to have the integration. That's where we have at Manage Engine, we are able to cover the full suite of this with the tool sets what we have at each layer. Right. Now, moving forward, just a last point. So when I was talking about the first 2 layers is about the protection, second 2 is about the detect and respond. So when you spend more energy focus on first 2, you're spending on the protection side, and that's called risk adverse posture. And when you have more on detect and respond, that's risk taking posture. So what should you do is have better protection, spend more on that, and then have lesser focus, or I would say not the focus, I would have lesser resource, lesser problem in terms of taking postures. Invest more on the protection and take lesser in security risk posture, because having protection stops a lot of unwanted things which should gain your attention, which is not required. it can be protected automatically. So how to have that one is something that we call as the layered approach to the endpoint security. Now we are getting into the security strategy for the endpoints, how you have to look at the endpoints. So we call this as a Johari window, right? So this talks about the vulnerability, asking you to view your endpoints using this vulnerability view, threat actors view, right? So this is vulnerability against remediation. This is the plotting of the table. Vulnerability against the remediations. So the first one is about, the first quadrant is on known vulnerability and known remediation. This means the patching where there are three parties, the software vendor, the customer, and the threat actor. All three parties know about the vulnerability and the fix. So it's a responsibility of the end user or the customer to take that and apply it on his network and endpoints. Now, this is your first line of defense. So it about the endpoint with OS, applications, third-party applications, drivers, other operating systems, right? All these things should be covered, and the patching, holistic way of doing the patching is known first line of defense. Think about this, even if the endpoints are not available in your secured perimeter, they are working from home, you should be able to do that. Now, so that's where we talk about the patch management. So identifying the critical patches, and the good practice is to have a test group of computers which you should be able to assign it, so that the entire process of downloading the patches, testing it on your, according to the schedule you have, based on the severity, based on the endpoints or the applications what you want to do, you should be able to automate the process of testing on the selected number of computers, and based on that approve the patches and then deploy it to the highly vulnerable computers and get the reports and compliance audits, right? That's how it goes. But in terms of cloud, in terms of hybrid, right? So when everything goes to remote locations, right? You should be able to understand the end user's availability and schedule flexible ways of patching when they are coming into the network, and then having a better reboot policy, because when they work, you don't have to reboot those machines, right? All these things comes as a challenge because the endpoints are not in the physical or reachable perimeter within the perimeter. Now, how do you solve the problem of unpatched systems, which they don't come frequently into the patching cycle? So during the cycle, it's not available. Now, how do you ensure those things are patched? Now, these are the real-time challenges in terms when you are on the cloud, right? Now, this is where you have the automation of the patches, and along with that, the problem of the patches which are not there to pick up the patches during the patching cycle can be done outside the patch deployment window, which means what you cover is covered, but those which are not covered has a different bracket where based on this policy which you define with the server, you should be able to patch the unpatched systems which are not falling in any of the patch deployment cycle which you have. And the second major concern in terms of hybrid or cloud managed endpoints are basically the patch anywhere for endpoints. Now, they don't need to connect to a VPN and then they have to take the patches from the test server after testing it internally. But you can enable the downloads directly. Though you have tested it internally, you should be able to enable them outside, and then they can download anywhere, wherever they work from the internet, and start the patching, which is authorized by the server. Now, the next problem what I see is there are power users who wants to manage their missions because they know about the systems, the vulnerability, the risk, all the stuff. But the work what they do on the service or on the application service or on their endpoint is essential. So you want to delegate that to such people, then you have the self-service mode, which is also available. You could see here from the screenshot. Delegate that through the self-service portal so that those power users who know about, who are responsible enough to understand the risk and ensure to protect them would be able to just use the self-service and start deploying, particularly in the terms of people who are managing the application service in the DevOps environment or production environment. They should be able to make use of this, right? So holistically, covering the patch for Windows, third parties, the frameworks, right? The BIOS, all this stuff put together will ensure that you are protected and your patching becomes your first line of defense. Moving forward, the second and third quadrant, which I have highlighted here, and the Q2 and Q3, right? So this is all about the blind spot. I call it as blind spots. The reason being, so they are all unknown vulnerabilities. What do you mean by unknown vulnerability? This means we don't know what is that vulnerability, but we should be able to use that in the network as a functionality, as a regular business enabling application or process, but should have some measures which can stop any unknown vulnerability reaching out to us. Let's take first the vulnerabilities. Apart from patching, you have other vulnerabilities like unwanted applications, right? Unwanted protocols, unwanted ports, misconfigurations on the servers, and typically other unwanted things, right? Now, those things have to be brought to your visibility. This application should be able to bring all this to your visibility, and based on that, you should be able to place security controls over that. If you don't want to have SMB-V1 protocol or the obsolete other protocols in your network, you can go ahead and disable that. If you don't want certain ports which are vulnerable to be open, you can close that. You don't want torrent in your business environment, you can just go ahead and do that, right? Now, all those things, misconfigurations can be found and corrected, right? And this one is not completely kind of fully automated, because vulnerabilities would be having some manual process in terms of where the service which you have, which we will be able to find that, but you should be able to fix it manually running a script or manual settings, configuration, things like that. But altogether, apart from patching, better visibility in terms of vulnerable things, in terms of configurations, protocol, ports, should be brought to your network, and then you should be able to manage it. This is one blind spot. And browsers are the most powerful thing in endpoint. They are powerful not because they are browsers. They are powerful because they have the plugins, extensions, helper objects. You call it in any name, but it's the additional software which is hiding inside the browser and doing the task for you. Now, do you have visibility of what are the plugins or extensions or any such software is running under the browser? Do you have an inventory? Do you have visibility whether they are leaking the data outside or not? What privilege are they running? Now, this could be brought under better visibility and then have controls over that. Browser security management. And then you have application control. When I say application control, you have do you have the allowed application list? Only those applications can run in the network. Or you can do unallowed application list which you don't allow in the network. right? Something like that, which is not a productivity application, but you know that you had some employees used there, so mark them and ensure that they don't enter into the network again, right? Now, is the application running on elevated privilege? Is it leaking data outside? So elevation is one challenge the organization would happen. So you cannot elevate application for a long time or as long as they run. The elevation should happen just in time when they need it and then go down to the regular mode. Now, do you have that? So this will ensure that unwanted applications like malware, something new which comes into the organization and run, this stops it. And have you defined what is sensitive data according to your organization? When I say sensitive data, have you defined what is a PHI sensitive data for your organization, for your business? And this sensitive data cannot be copied, printed, moved to one more files, or sent as an email. All those things has to be taken care so that the data leak is prevented. Even insider attack, leaking the data intentionally or accidentally or unknowingly could be stopped when you have such a solution in place. And the encryption data, what goes out of the endpoint and comes in, if at all there is a man-in-the-middle attack, it should not leak the data, business data outside, but it should be encrypted so that even if somebody is able to get that and tamper it, they will not be able to see the actual business data. And finally, network access control. When you have your endpoints working outside, they are not contacting the management server for a long time, right? When they come back or access your business remotely, how are you allowing? So are you trying to understand whether the security posture of the endpoint, which was not communicating you for a long time, which is communicating now, is in the same standard as you have defined for the organization? If not, quarantine and ensure it is done. Or to the next level is going to be conditional access based on the security posture. So the first step of that is network access control, which is part of this. Now, all these things put together, vulnerability, browser, network access control, application control, data leak prevention, right? Managing your USB devices, things like that, encryption, all these things put together is your blind spot, which is including the training for the employees about instead of consumers, you have to make them as partners of security so that the blind spot is actually getting better visibility. And when you have better visibility, you should be able to have better management and security controls over them. So this is your second layer. First layer is patch, second layer is your unknown vulnerabilities and the solutions for that. Now move on to the third layer, which is all about detection and response. So that's where we call it as endpoint detection and response. So where you should be able to detect any new threats which are getting in and then stop it based on the behavior or your how you identify that and then respond to it. Now, how is this possible? Based on two things. One is based on the previous attacks and understanding the TTP, tactics, techniques, procedures, and then you should be able to protect that. And the other one is having a baseline of knowledge about the endpoint. So for my business, this is how the endpoint behaves in terms of programs you use, in terms of data connects, in terms of commands. You have a baseline from the endpoint. When there is going to be a deviation, then you move it to suspicious and then move to malicious if you find it's not the right one, right? Now, so we have more in terms of area, which we already have released the ransomware module for that already available, and we are due for the release of the whole video by this year, right? So this is the strategy, right? Now, let's focus on few other stuff, right? So the CSA controls. So they're the best in terms of applying settings to your organization. So business is uh, perfectly protected based on the CAS controls and recommendations. Now, how do you ensure whatever we talk in terms of strategy, whether you want to go with that or you want to take the CAS controls? Now, just for a better understanding, I have plotted the CAS controls under the same NIST against the assets which you want to manage in your organization. Now, if you see here, it clearly plots itself in this two-dimensional matrix and ensures that you are able to identify and protect more energy on that side and detect and response with some settings on that, right? Now, so I have actually planned to explain this through the CAS controls. All the CAS controls, you should be able to achieve it using the product, the add-ons which I was talking about. This one talks about at each layer, what are the products that we have. For the patching, you have the Patch Manager Plus, which only does the patching portion for all your endpoints, different platforms, but only patching. Vulnerability management, along with patching, you will also have the vulnerability management. And Endpoint Central is a suite. Along with patching, it also gives you the asset management. It also gives you the other capabilities in terms of managing your images, in terms of managing your remote tool configuration, software deployment, all those things put together as a suite, you should be able to do that. And in terms of blind spots, Q3 and Q2, you have again a Browser Security Plus, which is also part of security add-on, and Application Control Plus, Device Control Plus, Data Endpoint DLP Plus. All these things put together can be a plugin inside your Endpoint Central itself, right? And finally, where we already have released anti-ransomware, we are due for the release of the EDR, which is going to be part of this, so that strategically we cover everything what we discuss in terms of looking at your endpoints from the threat actor's point of view or the vulnerabilities point of view, and then having a layered approach, having these patching as your first defense, and then having it configured so that unwanted vulnerabilities, right, would be stopped here, because the basic of vulnerabilities from the OS applications, third-party applications, and BIOS, things like that. When you patch it 100%, then you are almost protected. Only based on few instances, gaps where you could find because of the identity which uses them and the passwords, or the way that it is configured, or where it is not contacting your server, or any other means of third-party applications, in case if they have local users they install. Now, because of that, they could have let the threat actor come inside, and that's where you have the blind spots where you get better visibility. And the third layer is all about better detection and response to any new attacks, right? So this is what I was talking about. This ransomware is already in use, available for the customers to consume, not at cost, because we want to release it along with the EDR, but this one is available because most of our customers are affected or want some protection in terms of ransomware, so we have enabled this. So you could see here statistics about it has got behavioral AI, and it could analyze 10 lakh events per day, and with less CPU consumption, and it does the data backup and recovery automatically. That is, it is more resilient. It gives you resilience for your endpoints independently. For this to happen, we have a patented technology which is mentioned in terms of behavior to reduce the false positive, and the protection for data recovery, where the resilience, even the machine is under attack. If the attack is detected, understood based on previous attacks like what we said TTPs, or based on behavior analysis telemetry data. When we attack that this is suspicious and move to malicious, the attack would be stopped, right? And immediately the data would be recovered and from the session, and the end point should be able to continue its business as usual, right? And this information would go on to the server, and the network would be alerted in terms of this. And this behavior attack, which has happened in one machine, would go as a knowledge to every machine, so that will not happen to other machines. So ensuring these other machines are not are protected now. So this is with respect to only ransomware detection and response. Manage engine endpoint management and detection. Security is coming up with the full suite of EDR, which will have the capabilities to manage and protect your network against the unknown type of vulnerabilities. Unknown vulnerabilities, unknown remediation, but only detection and response should be able to tackle that. That's what we discussed in the last quadrant of this, which I have highlighted, right? So that's where your EDR solution is going to be really helpful. Unknown region. Now, I was talking about the multiple assets, and in organizations there might be other applications which are in use, right? Like what you see on the right hand side, where other applications which are there for a different business purpose which you have chosen. But for you to have a better visibility for the holistic organization in terms of the assets which you manage, could be through that different products. Then UEM, Unified Endpoint Management, is capable of giving the endpoint management security and then integrate, has the capability to interoperate with other such solutions, extend its APIs and extends its functionality, so that as an organization, even though you have different types of applications for you from different vendors, you should be able to have the better integration so that you can view your network holistically using this, right? Now, I just want to add a couple of more things about the last layer, unknown vulnerability, unknown remediation, right? So in order to enable this, I was talking about the TTPs, tactics, techniques, procedures, which were actually used in previous attacks, or actually part of the product, so that any such previous attack should be able to detect it immediately by the application and then stop the attack. Now, in order to achieve that, you also have to have telemetry data, the information collected from the endpoints to understand its behavior and baseline the behavior. And this is one aspect of EDR which the information are collected. But the same information, come back to the first quadrant, which we talked about, patch management. The patch management today's scenario is done based on the severity of the patch, right? And the availability of the endpoint, right? Based on these combinations, the patch deployment is scheduled and done. That's usually with every product. Every organization would have its own way of doing that, but this is how basically it goes. Now, when you have the telemetry data, which is collected for the fourth quadrant, unknown, this could be again used in terms of intelligence-driven automation. Say, for example, you don't have to choose your test target group. The system would be able to select that, because the test group which mimics your actual production environment is very critical to test, so that you don't get any surprises in the production network, right? Now, this could be automatically done, and then testing could be done. And one of the major areas is basically when you do a patch deployment. Now, you want to prioritize the endpoints which are exposed to the internet. And this exposed to the internet based on the applications and criticality of the missing patches what they have has to be prioritized. Now all these knowledge are available to your system based on the telemetry data. What time the endpoint is usually available, how long it is available, who uses that in under which login, and what time is the less CPU intensive, less traffic generated time by your endpoint. So exposure, severity, availability, and criticality of the patches, availability of the resources, based on all these stuff, based on the telemetry knowledge, the system itself able to prioritize, create, deploy the patches to these machines immediately. And then it could have other machines which are less exposed or which are not exposed to the internet but has critical missing patches. So severity based on that, it should be able to do that. So what I'm trying to say is a technician has to you need not to spend much time in doing all these tasks moving forward when you have this, because we should be able to do some intelligent work to automate this process and prioritize sensibly based on the situations given, right? And similarly, what time application has to be deployed based on the availability. That can also be done. And in case there is a patch which was deployed and which is causing the issue, it should be able to understand the performance of the machine before and after the patch deployment or any application deployment. And if it finds that only because of this is happening, this would automatically suggest, and if required, revert that patch or that application so that the performance of the employee is actually maintained. Right? This is really essential based on the telemetry data that in future we should be able to expect these things to happen for the layer 1 defense, which could be automated based on this. And from the employee's endpoint experience point of view, this is essential because everywhere today we hear that there is a lot of talk about employee experience. This is all about balancing the productivity versus employee experience. When you want to increase your productivity, when you want to increase security, when you want to increase privacy, now all those things are definitely going to alter the behavior or process level which the employee uses his application endpoint or the infrastructure resource, right? When there is a change in the way that he usually uses the resource for the business, then that becomes a challenge and the productivity drops, or the regular work stops at some point because there is a new security measure, there is a new initiative, there is a new process. Now, this employee experience can be much improved based on the same information. So with respect to employee experience from the endpoint's view, right, if the endpoint is having some faulty hardware, instead of the end users reporting to you, you should be able to detect that earlier. And there are applications crashing. Before the end user reports, you should be able to get that information and reach out to him saying that there is something wrong. And if you really know that is because of the latest update which you pushed last week, the end user might not know that it is crashing or it is slowing down in terms of performance because of that. You should be able to understand that, revert that, so that he will always have the better experience in terms of using the product. And health of the endpoint in terms of battery, in terms of other means, some failures on the hardware, all those things, delays, right, in terms of other policies which are causing the delay in the logon, performance degradation in the applications. Now, all these things are the criteria which actually hampers the employee experience. When you are able to capture that and proactively do some action based on that, so from the endpoint's perspective, employee experience can be better managed and provided. And finally, I was talking about different asset classification in an organization and the NIST way of cyber framework to manage and secure them. Now, so far what I have talking in terms of Johari window, in terms of giving you different layered approach to secure your endpoints management and security, having visibility on other assets. Remember the all other classification. When you are able to get a security detection from all asset resources and able to respond to them, and that's where we call about XDR, extended detection response, which you extend your detection response not only to the endpoint but also other classification. That's where the holistic view of the two-dimensional C-level view comes and helps you, where you should be able to protect your business, protect your business assets, not only the endpoints, all assets from the security framework, and ensure that you have better visibility, management, and security to run the business as usual. So we also have a lot of training materials on this, hands-on training with real-time use cases scenarios, so which are available in our regular training, which runs every month throughout the year. Probably once you are done with, you have registered, we can send you those details. So getting into that gives you hands-on training, and even you have certifications provided based on those trainings. Please feel free to avail them also. Thank you so much. So if you have any questions, feel free to post your questions. I should be able to handle that and assist you better. You have a great day. Thank you.